The first forbidden place in the southern sky, the Devil's Valley. The golden lightning bamboo stands in this forest, converging in the Tian Nan kingdom. I can't be seeing this wrong. This is the fruit of the heavens, which can extend one's lifespan by 100 years with just one bite. That purple spiritual mushroom. Could it be the rumored one that repairs the heavens? Looking at this, it should have been here for over 10,000 years. Even if eaten raw, it can be cultivated for nearly several decades. And this golden, shining bamboo, could it be the thunder bamboo among the 3 great hardwoods? And this, Lu Wei, upon seeing the 6 or 7 types of flowers and herbs on the offering table, was stunned. Then, he restrained his fierce expression and began to speak incoherently. He could hardly believe everything he was seeing. Unable to control himself, he took 2 steps forward, intending to get a closer look. Taoist Lu, if I were you, I wouldn't be so reckless. Do you really think these spiritual medicines are just laid out here for us to take? Taoist friend, take a good look around before you speak. Just as the old man was extremely excited, Nan Longho suddenly spoke coldly. Brother Nan Long, what do you mean by that? The old man felt as if cold water had been poured over him upon hearing those words. His mind suddenly cleared. He hurriedly looked around again. This seems to be the rumored Little Zumi Vira town. How could a Buddhist law town appear here? The old man with the surname Lu finally noticed some runes drawn on the surrounding walls. He realized something significant. He was quite surprised. Although the South Long Marquis's voice was calm, his eyes were fixed on the various spirit herbs on the offering table. Filled with greed, he wished he could grab all these spirit herbs into his hands. These spirit herbs were all things he and the old man needed the most. Now they were within reach. Naturally, he found it hard to contain his excitement. As soon as he entered this place and saw these spirit herbs, he almost immediately thought of sweeping all these spirit herbs away. However, he didn't expect that there was a strange prohibition in this place. As a result, he stumbled quite a bit. He had to obediently wait for the old man. Now, upon hearing the old man with the surname Lu mention the name of the Little Zumi Vira town, the South Long Marquis's spirit lifted. He felt great joy in his heart. He had just realized that the formation he had contacted earlier was vastly different from the many formations he had studied before. Significantly different from many formations studied before. I am secretly worried. This formation of the old man nowadays. This is naturally wonderful. The stillness of this place when you are resting. Lord Nan Long suppressed the excitement in his heart. He asked with anticipation. In the new year, I once obtained some Buddhist cultivation texts, although I did not practice them due to the nature of the techniques. But some of the Buddhist laws and prohibitions recorded above. The first 1 or 2 of the theft of wild records. This small vira is indeed one of the most sacred formations. Brother Nan Long, if this prohibition is truly this formation, it could be troublesome. The old man shifted his gaze back to the offering table. His brows began to furrow as he spoke. What does this mean? Is it really impossible to break this formation? Nan Long's expression slightly changed. He looked somewhat disbelieving. This small Vire town is also called the Vire Trapping Immortal Town. It might be one of the few safe methods in the world to rely on brute force to break the stillness. There are fundamentally no other methods to break the formation. To break this formation, one must constantly use various attacks to wear down the protective barrier created by this formation. Must constantly use various attacks to wear down the forbidden's passport generated by this formation. And it never stops, because in terms of defensive power alone, it might not rank highly among many formations. But if we talk about endurance, this method is known in the Buddha sect as indestructible and unending. It seems that as long as it is left undestroyed, it can quickly recover to its original state. The old man pondered for a moment, and the crowd spoke up. Then, seemingly to confirm what he said, Elder Lu Din flicked his hand. A fireball suddenly shot towards the offering table, which was about a meter away. Before the fireball could touch the table, it exploded on its own, turning into nothingness. A layer of spiritual light surrounded the table, illuminating it. This light was dazzling gold. Ancient Buddha beads, the size of a hat, emerged one by one on the illuminated wall, like silver flowers blooming. They were scattered all over the light. The expression of the southern Marquis was slightly dusty. He had seen this kind of scene once before, so he did not show any surprise. What is this? A surprised exclamation came from the old man beside him. The southern Marquis casually turned his hand to take a look. He saw Lu Weiying, staring in astonishment at a certain spot in the golden light. A face full of despair. Under the differences of the southern Long Marquis, glimmers of light flickering in the mist, straining to see through the screen following its gaze. Also, looking in that direction, only to see golden light in their eyes. Originally, apart from a few spiritual herbs, there was nothing at the center of the offering table. A hazy circular wave silently emerged, about the size of a head. The surface of this circular wave was adorned with various profound and colorful runes floating. Surrounding it were 8 pieces of white jade lying flat, crowding in the middle. Above the circular wave, at a considerable height, there were 3 small objects, floating there, motionless. Only upon careful observation did the southern Marquis see clearly that it was a silver small item, a black Zen staff and a blood-red orb. Although these 3 items were only about an inch in size, they emitted strands of 3-colored spiritual light. The 3 strands of spiritual light intertwined and fused together, casting the circular wave on the offering table within. The southern Marquis was left dumbfounded. The circular wave jade talisman and those 3 magical tools mysteriously flashed on the offering table and vanished in an instant. Subsequently, the golden light of the surrounding surged, also silently drifted away. What is going on? Previously, when this light appeared, it seemed that these things were not seen. How did the old man lose Sunstrike? And these things suddenly appeared on the offering table. Nan Long's lips were tightly sealed, and as the light disappeared, his gaze remained astonished and uncertain. Naturally, the old man Lu Zun had no such doubts. He simply pondered in front of the newly appeared round waves and other items. It was clear to see, compared to the newly appeared items in stillness, those spiritual medicines were obviously just supplementary. What treasures could be more valuable than these heavenly spiritual items? How could they be anything? Even just thinking about it made the old man's heart race. The initial concerns and unease he felt when seeing the blood curse gate were instantly thrown out of his mind. Brother Lu, it seems we really came to the right place this time. If we can break this Buddhist sect's prohibition, our trip will not have been in vain. Nan Long Marquis naturally had the same thought. Suddenly, he smiled and said to the old man, "Indeed, I didn't expect that behind this blood curse gate there would be so many secret protections. But breaking this prohibition is not an easy task." "It's not an easy task either. It's impossible not to spend some time, and it's impossible not to lose some energy." The old scholar speaks in classical Chinese. A faint smile appeared on his face. Heh, being able to obtain these treasures, let alone losing energy, even if it means shortening my life by 10 years, I would willingly accept it. Earlier, my friend mentioned breaking this formation. It seems there is only brute force as a means to break it. It looks like I really have my work cut out for me. There's no time to waste. Let's take action now. When the time comes, we can divide the spoils. How about I share everything equally with Brother Lu? The old man seemed unwilling to delay any longer. He stared at the elder and spoke directly. Since Brother Nan Lu has said so, I will naturally comply. The elder also wanted to take out the treasures, and agreed very readily. Brother Nan Lu's expression showed satisfaction. However, at this moment, the two of them subtly created some distance between each other. They both sensed a hint of vigilance from the other. The elder below took out the white magic flag, tossed it into the air, and then sat down to guard the magic decision. Brother Nan Long waved his sleeve. The southern Long Marquis waved his sleeve. That golden flying sword, you silently shot it out. Suddenly, a fierce wind rose in this place. The sword energy came from the side. The golden light shone again. A rumbling sound echoed continuously from the ground. Near a mountain peak, a blue long rainbow swept by from afar. In the King Hong Society, Han Li was hurrying along. At this moment, he had already passed the mountain peak where Ziwen rested. This was heading towards the cave he initially entered in the Inner Ancient. Since he had already traversed this path once, Han Li felt quite at ease. Deng Wang's speed was several times faster than when he came. Originally, it would take more than a day. Han Li only took 1/3 of the time it took to come to reach this place, just as he was estimating in his heart that in another hour, he could re-enter the cave. Suddenly, from a distance to the side, a faint continuous rumbling sound came through. Han Li's expression shifted slightly. He couldn't help but turn his hand to take a look over there. The divine stone quickly scanned. There was an unusual spiritual energy fluctuation coming from that direction. Han Li couldn't help but squint his eyes. In the distant mountains, a faint white light flickered. If he remembered correctly, there, it was precisely a place he suspected his roommate had left undisturbed. There might be an ancient modification that protects secrets. It seems other modifications have finally intruded into the Inner Ancient, and have begun to break the restrictions and search for treasures. Han Li thought for a moment and then shook his head. The idea of fishing in troubled waters from the past flickered in his mind, but was forcibly suppressed, and to avoid attracting others' attention, the divine stone only quickly swept past over there, not truly searching for those treasure seekers. For Han Li, It's better to have less trouble than more. The green and red once again broke through the air to absorb. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared without a trace from the nearby mountain. In the direction Hanli had just looked, several dozen miles away, a group of over 10 cultivators were driving various magical treasures, sweeping towards a small hill enveloped in white light, launching fierce attacks. Leading them was that Mulan deity, along with the Confucian scholar and that woman with the surname Le. This group was actually all Mulan practitioners. As Han Li flew away from a distance, Zhang Xin's eyebrows twitched slightly. He instinctively glanced in the direction where Han Li had flown away. "What's wrong, Zhang Shang? Did you notice something different?" The malicious woman noticed the scholar's unusual behavior. "I couldn't help but ask." "It's nothing, just that there was a guy from tomorrow." The cultivator briefly probed over here with divine sense. "But it seems he doesn't intend to get involved. He just glanced over from a distance and flew away. As for us breaking the prohibition, I can't be bothered to investigate further." As Sheng Dan said, "What everyone is saying is that the prohibition here has been broken to a critical point. I hope it's not like the last prohibition, where there were nothing but scrap metal, and no treasures at all, and to people were unnecessarily lost in the spatial rift on the way." The malicious woman sighed deeply. She said helplessly, "There's nothing we can do about it. Those invisible spatial rifts are truly hard to guard against, and some of the DJ we prepared in advance, once they entered, they immediately went crazy one by one. They all rushed around uncontrollably. Otherwise, the fall of those two could have been avoided." Upon hearing this, the assistant's expression darkened slightly. "Those spiritual instruments used for scouting don't seem to be going crazy. That's why it's out of control. Is there something here? Something specifically restraining the beasts?" The black eagle I borrowed is already a level 5 spirit bird. Since entering the inner bones, it has also been unmanageable. It even refuses to fly out during retail hours. It seems this mushroom has some strange allure. The woman, however, seems to ponder. "Perhaps this place is known as the number 1 brotherhood in the south. Naturally, there are some ghosts lurking inside. However, we are not here to uncover the mystery of the Demonfall Valley. Instead, we are trying to search for some ancient castles for our Mulan, and Lin Dan as well. So, even without a spirit bird to lead the way, we must continue searching." This opportunity was exchanged for a deal with the upper echelons of the 4 major forces in the south. A rare opportunity that must not be wasted. Like a flash of light in a living organism, Chen Sheng, in disbelief, said. While the lively woman spoke publicly about the strange aspects of the Demonfall Valley, Han Li was already far over 100 miles away. The remaining journey was uneventful. After several stone towns, he successfully flew to the cave at the inner valley's entrance. He took out that 2-winged ring again. He smoothly flew to the cave in the inner valley. He took out the 2-winged ring again. Han Li just recited the protection mantra. He entered the passage in the cave. He traversed several miles of the cave. It didn't take much time. Soon, Han Li walked out of the section of the passage from the Arctic-Yuan light. He saw the somewhat pale exit of the cave. The threat in his heart quickened his pace. A moment later, Han Li's eyes brightened. A person appeared again. It was in front of the ancient cliff. Han Li raised his hand to glance at the dim sky. Although it still looked uncomfortable, it was much better than the almost omnipresent, blood-red glow in the inner ancient realm. Finally, it was much stronger. The Divine Master team scanned the nearby area. Nothing unusual happened. There were no other cultivators. They observed the situation here. Only then did Han Li let out a slight sigh of relief. His gaze shifted down to the rock wall at the cave entrance. Without hesitation, a greenish spell flew out. After a flash of spiritual light, it entered the stone wall and disappeared without a trace. Then, without saying a word, Han Li made a hand seal. A low, rumbling sound echoed from his mouth. A strange scene appeared. The seemingly ordinary surface of the rock wall suddenly revealed a layer of greenish mist. The entire mountain wall was covered within it. Suddenly, a group of small golden swarms appeared. It was the golden bugs swarming out from the light mist. Blocks of silver gold of varying sizes fell down from the swarm of bugs. The larger ones were the size of a fist, while the smaller ones were only as big as a pea. In the blink of an eye, a small pile gathered on the ground where Han Li had been. They emerged as glimmering pieces that resembled silver, though they appeared somewhat translucent. This was precisely the crystallized product of refined steel-silver sand ore. At first, when a few pieces fell, Han Li's expression remained calm. However, when the number of crystals falling to the ground reached more than 10, he couldn't help but show a look of emotion. The steel-silver sand vein here was much more abundant than he had initially expected. It seems that the few mechanical puppets I developed can all be fused and refined with this material? Suddenly, A voice filled with surprise from the big-eyed spirit lord echoed in your mind, appearing unable to contain itself. Yes, the junior also didn't expect that the steel-silver sand vein here would be so plentiful. This harvest is truly remarkable. When the last group of testing bugs also dropped the crystallized steel-silver sand they had stored, Han Li looked at the small pile of silver brilliance on the ground. After the dazzling light, he happily returned to the embroidered robe, looking down at the ground. After a wave of azure mist swept over, the ground was as empty as a wild wax. All the steel-silver sand crystals were absorbed. In an instant, they were all collected into the storage bag. Then, with a sound from his mouth, a golden cloud of insects spiraled in the air. They swooped down like a swarm. All dove into the retail bag. After doing all this, Han Li slapped the storage bag with his hand. A transparent orb the size of a thumb appeared in his hand. As he opened his mouth, a burst of immature spiritual energy immediately sprayed onto the orb. The originally clear and crystal-like orb flickered with spiritual light. Soon, a blue light spot the size of a soybean appeared in the orb. Han Ling's gaze flickered as he stared at the orb in his hand. After a while, he slightly furrowed his brows. He raised his hand and looked around. He tried to identify the direction. He was now surrounded by a shimmering light. Silently, he transformed into a streak of blue and red soaring into the sky. He flew off in a certain direction. Although he was flying, Han Li was still dragging the round ball with one hand, and with every distance he flew, he would definitely lower his head to look at the house. Then he would readjust his flight direction. Because of this, Han Li's speed naturally couldn't increase too quickly. He flew leisurely along the way. After flying for several dozen miles, when passing over a desolate area, Han Li suddenly let out a soft sound. He abruptly came to a stop. Then Han Li's figure sank, and he fell down wrapped in the clear light. When he was about 30 feet above the desolate ground, Han Li's movement once again halted. His gaze flashed as he looked down. He saw a dismembered corpse lying on the desolate ground below. It had long since solidified. Dark blood stains had stained a large area nearby, and on this corpse, it appeared empty. The storage bag and magical treasures had vanished without a trace. It seems someone finally couldn't resist taking action. Han Li stared at this gruesome corpse for a moment. She gasped to herself. He had just confirmed that there were no spatial rifts nearby. It must have been killed by other modifiers. Han Li did not linger here. She quickly left this place and continued moving towards a certain location. Although he believed there were difficulties at this moment, apart from those two reasons, the other guys should not pose a real threat to him. However, if a group of modifiers teamed up and specifically set traps for him, the danger would still be considerable. Of course, this possibility was almost non-existent, but given Han Li's cautious instincts, she still heightened her vigilance on the road ahead. In the following days, Han Li did not encounter any ambushes. At that time, she discovered two unfortunate modifier corpses that had died under the invisible spatial rift. When Han Li saw their incomplete bodies, she could only shake her head. Following the guidance of the spiritual light within the sphere, Han Li finally appeared above a dense deer forest. Looking down at the seemingly boundless, lush greenery and towering trees, Han Li fell into deep thought. Suddenly, the palm dragging the round ball suddenly clenched into a fist. With a slight exertion, a faint light flashed across the 5 fingers. A crisp cracking sound immediately followed. That seemingly transparent round ball was crushed to pieces by Han Li with a forceful squeeze. It vanished into thin air. The hint of blue light in the sphere has not dissipated. Instead, it gently floats away from its confinement. Right in front of Han Li, a low hum escapes Han Li's lips. She extends a finger to point at the light. Instantly, this youthful light begins to fly in a certain direction. Han Li follows the light without haste, not a step behind. An hour later, the direction of the light changes above a certain part of the dense forest. It flies diagonally downward. A flash of golden light appears in Han Li's eyes. She descends along with it. When she reaches the ground, the light circles around a towering giant tree. After going around a few times, the golden flash vanishes into the trunk of the giant tree. Pan Li sees this tree, and also flies to its side. Her smooth feet touch the ground. She slightly brightens her eyes at the tree. Raising her hand, she aims and strikes with a palm. With a muffled bang, the place she struck flashes with green light. A cute little captive unexpectedly emerges from the tree. With quick reflexes, she uses her fingers to grab the little creature in her hand. Looking at the tissue-like little creature, Fulu, Han Li's face showed a faint smile. With a gentle wave of her finger, the captured prey suddenly ignited and burned itself. It transformed into a red light and flew away into the sky. This time, Han Li stood still without moving. Instead, she sat cross-legged with her legs crossed. She slowly closed her eyes. This was to recover some of the magical power consumed from the journey. Not long after, the red light fell in an inconspicuous corner of the dense forest. Moments later, a beam of light suddenly shot up into the sky from there. It rose straight towards Han Li's location. Before the golden red light approached the place where Han Li was sitting, Han Li sensed it and slowly opened her eyes. She looked calmly towards the source of the golden red light. After a short while, the golden red light arrived at this spot and circled around above Han Li, as if confirming Han Li's identity. Only then did it dive down. As soon as the stunning figure touched the ground, she immediately disappeared in front of Han Li, revealing a beautiful woman in a white dress. She looked like a celestial fairy. Han Li's gaze naturally fell upon her. Miss Zi Ling, you arrived quite quickly. Han Li's expression was unusually calm. Han Li's expression was unusually calm and quick. I have been waiting here for several days for my fellow Taoist. During this time, there have been a few waves of 6 or 7 cultivators. They have searched through this forest, and it seems to be happening more frequently. If they don't come soon, I fear I won't be able to stay in the forest any longer. Zi Ling's voice is pleasant to hear, but it carries a hint of melancholy. Ren En walked over. Han Li smiled slightly. After looking at Zi Ling's face, which was as beautiful as jade, he continued with a shifting gaze. Miss Zi Ling has actually revealed her true appearance. This is somewhat unexpected for Han. I thought Taoist Zi Ling would come here in disguise. When I first entered the stock, I indeed did not use my true appearance. However, the treasure used to conceal my true appearance seems to have encountered some restrictions in the Devil's Abyss, and has gradually become ineffective. It can no longer serve its purpose of concealment, so I had no choice but to show my true self. Why the shyness? Do you think my appearance is too rough to catch the eye of a fellow Taoist? Zi Ling smiled with her lips pressed together. She said charmingly, Miss Zi Ling is joking. Alright, fellow Taoist, there's no need to tease me. Is this the first marked place you found? Han Li let out a bitter laugh first. Han Li first let out a bitter laugh. The expression on the face became serious. There should be a 90% chance that there is no problem, because the original mark seems to have been removed by the Ghost Spirit sect. But the fact that they can find this place to do such things actually indicates that there is no problem here. Zi Ling also retracted her smile and said, since that's the case, let's follow the traces of the Ghost Spirit sect and search first. This might save us a lot of trouble. As soon as Hanny heard the words Ghost Spirit sect, her brows raised slightly. Then she coldly said, everything is as Hanyu instructed. I had already placed our unique mark from the Miao insect on that Ghost Spirit sect disciple a month ago. This mark is not made with any legal means, but with a certain colorless and odorless fragrance. This fragrance has a small range, and it loses its effectiveness within 2 months. But now, it's very effective for tracking the Ghost Spirit sect's whereabouts. Zi Ling said very obediently. A hint of a blush flashed across her face. Zi Ling said, thank you for your efforts. Fellow Taoist, let's set off. First, we need to catch up with the people from the Ghost Spirit sect, and then find them. We need to locate the remaining marks. This way, the Spirit Pearl fruit will be ours. Then found them. First, locate the remaining markers. This way, the Spirit Pearl fruit will be ours for the taking. Han Li was not polite either. After nodding slightly, he slowly stood up. Suddenly, a silver-furred flying squirrel flew out of the dense forest. This flying squirrel cleverly darted around in the air. After a brief display of grace, it transformed into a silver streak and flew in a certain direction. Soon, two astonishing rainbows shot out from the forest. One circled around while the other followed closely behind the silver streak. Just as Han Li and the others were closely pursuing the flying squirrel, the leader of the Ghost Spirit sect and Wei Wuya had already crossed over the Giant Mountain. They appeared in a basin. This basin was dark and damp, with puddles of varying sizes scattered across the ground. The group, forced to walk, felt quite frustrated. Although you men could cast some minor spells to keep the muddy water at bay, their speed naturally decreased significantly. However, this time neither Wang Tiangu nor Wei Wuya complained about anything, because when they had crossed the peak of the giant mountain earlier, they had seen from a high vantage point that in the center of the basin stood a grand temple, with a massive altar situated there. At this moment, everyone who had followed the leader of the Ghost Spirit sect to this place immediately felt invigorated, casting aside their previous doubts. It should be noted that ever since entering the Bone Realm, he cast aside his previous doubts. You must know that since entering the Bone, this is the first time they have seen such a complete structure. No need to ask, it must be an extraordinary place. It is likely related to the spiritual connection mentioned by the leader of the Ghost Spirit sect. There is indeed some connection. Therefore, the group moved even more slowly, yet everyone appeared calm and unhurried. They did not refrain from trying to use the floating tree technique of the Tree of Teeth. However, the only result was that moments later, a season of blood-red lightning suddenly descended from the sky, nearly shattering the protective talisman of that cultivator. It seemed that the closer they got to the center of this basin, the more severe the atmosphere became. As a result, others no longer thought about taking shortcuts. They could only line up and move forward slowly. A disciple from the Ghost Spirit sect was clearing the path ahead. When encountering obstacles like bushes, a few fireballs could easily clear a small path. After walking for most of the day, the group finally approached the altar. From a distance, they saw the enormous figure of the altar. This altar was entirely constructed of white mountain stones, featuring stairs on all four sides. The massive trapezoidal structure soared into the clouds, standing several hundred feet tall. It was truly magnificent. The massive trapezoidal structure towered into the clouds. It was at least several hundred zhang high. Truly magnificent. It's just that the distance is a bit far and a bit too high. I really can't see clearly. I can't tell what exactly is up there. We're finally getting close. It seems like we'll arrive there in another hour or two at most. We'll be able to reach it soon. Wang, the leader, is now even more curious about how the Taoist knows about the situation of the 0-second member. Wei Waiyu, although also walking on foot, radiates a faint green glow all over his body. After taking a gentle step forward, he silently glides several zhang away. It looks effortless, knowing that he is my brother. Rest assured, Taoist, Wang will definitely explain this matter to you. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect smiled slightly, seemingly unconcerned as he spoke. He nodded at Wu Ye, just as he was about to ask something else. Suddenly, the disciple of the Ghost Spirit sect, walking at the front, had a flash of spiritual light. His body stumbled, and then, without a sound, from the tip of his head to his waist, his body split into two sections. The corpse fell silently to the ground. A crack appeared in the space. The corpse fell silently downwards, into the spatial crack. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect, upon seeing this had a drastically changed expression. Wei Wuye and Wang Tianyu behind him also looked equally pale. Although they did not know what the leader of the Ghost Spirit sect was planning, they had followed the route he indicated to invest, and until now, they had never encountered any invisible spatial rift. Initially, they were somewhat anxious, but they had relaxed quite a bit. However, now a spatial rift suddenly appeared silently. The two of them couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. The other three disciples of the Ghost Spirit sect also turned pale. The entire group stopped moving forward. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect, looking at the corpses that had been cut down by the rift, had a face that fluctuated between dark and light. Meanwhile, the crow closed its eyes, seemingly sensing something with the divine stone, but after a moment, it opened its eyes again. No, this spatial rift cannot be sensed. Just because the divine stone is powerful, it cannot sense the existence of the rift. Wei Wuye shook his head expressionlessly and said. Wang Tianyu, upon hearing this, raised his hand and flicked his fingers, not aware of the existence of the crack. Wei Wuye shook his head expressionlessly and said. Wang Tianyu listened to this and raised his hand to flick his fingers. 5 fireballs scattered forward. They pounced back. Among them, 3 fireballs vanished in an instant. They disappeared into thin air, but they flew out from the sides and went far away. They exploded on the ground. 2 large pits appeared. The crack is very small. Just a slight deviation could allow us to bypass it. Wang Tianyu spoke slowly. Although this crack is not big, who knows how many more cracks will appear on the remaining path. We can't afford to lose more lives. And as far as I know, the route we are taking should not have any spatial cracks blocking the way. Could it be that person is hiding something? The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect did not show any signs of happiness. Instead, a hint of gloom appeared on his face as he muttered a few words. Hearing this, Wayu's expression shifted, but he did not ask anything. Instead, Wang Tianyu forgot to look at the distant altar of sacrifice, and glanced at the bodies lying on the ground, feeling somewhat puzzled. What does the sect leader mean? The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect furrowed his brows tightly. He did not answer immediately, but raised his hand to look at the sky. After a moment, he let out a long sigh. Not answering immediately, he looked up at the sky. After a moment, he let out a long sigh. I originally wanted to wait until we reached the altar, before revealing some things to you. But it seems that I can no longer keep it hidden. So let me show you a bit of the truth here, he said with a strange expression on his face. Wei Waiyu and the others exchanged glances upon hearing this. They looked somewhat puzzled. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect ignored everyone. With a flick of his robe, a flash of light flickered. Suddenly, a scroll appeared in his hand. This scroll, about several feet long, shimmering with light, and it looks exceptionally ancient. This is the scroll of Wang Tianyu's sword. The shocked students stood up. It seems you also recognize this item. This is something you personally taught me about. Everything regarding Lin Mai Aoyuan was obtained from this scroll. The leader of the ghost spirit sect glanced at Wang Tianyu and said lightly. Wang Tianyu was completely stunned. This scroll, indeed the one we found at the treasure site on the Mulan Prairie, suspected to be a portrait scroll of Master Kinkin. The leader of the ghost spirit sect then tossed the scroll, enveloping it in a mass of forest, lifting it into the air. Then, with a serious expression, he pinched a gesture, and his finger lightly touched the scroll. With a sizzling sound, the scroll quickly unfurled, revealing the scene inside. A figure with a common posture, looking up to the sky, leaping onto the canvas. Wang Tianyu and the others all widened their eyes, staring intently at the figure in the painting for a long time, trying to discover something, but they found nothing at all. However, Wei Waiyu also glanced at the image, but when he swept his gaze across the entire scroll, his expression couldn't help but change. A hint of surprise appeared on his face. There was indeed a reason for it. The later embellishments allowed him to quickly discover the mysteries within. Wang was able to notice the benefits of this scroll, completely relying on a secret technique he cultivated, that he stumbled upon. The leader of the ghost spirit sect saw Wei Waiyu's expression. After a moment of thought, he opened his mouth to praise. It's nothing. I haven't seen a magical artifact with such spatial properties in many years. If it weren't for your prior reminder, I wouldn't have been able to notice it easily, Wei Waiyu said with a strange expression. The leader of the ghost spirit sect smiled, no longer asking anything further, but he immediately raised his hand. A black spell shot out from the hand. It just happened to hit the open scroll. At the same time, with a cold snort, he suddenly rushed toward the scroll. He said, "Can't you come out? Do you really want me to use magic fire to force you out?" Upon hearing this, everyone else was startled. They felt somewhat baffled. Wei Waiyu also raised an eyebrow in surprise. There was a hint of admiration in his eyes. An unexpected scene unfolded. Hadn't it been agreed upon long ago? Before arriving at the designated place, I wouldn't be summoned again. Now, in front of so many people. You woke me up. Don't you want to continue the transaction? A clear, bright male voice came directly from the scroll. Then, a silver light burst forth from the image. The scholar, who had originally been facing away from them, suddenly turned around. He faced them directly, revealing the face of a peculiar middle-aged man. He had 3 strands of long hair, but his expression was cold and full of displeasure. This scene not only left the remaining disciples of the ghost spirit sect dumbfounded, but even Wang Tianyu, who had personally interacted with the scroll, was left with his mouth wide open. His mouth also opened wide, a face full of confusion. Only Wei Waiyu was startled at first, but his expression quickly calmed down, yet his eyes were fixed on the scholar's portrait in the scroll, with a thoughtful look in them. "Humph, you still ask me? Don't you know what happened in Sanbao Town? Is the route you gave me absolutely safe? What's going on with this spatial rift? It caused our sect to lose a disciple for nothing." The leader of the ghost spirit sect looked at the portrait and asked without any politeness, "The route I chose back then was definitely safe. How could there be a problem?" The scholar's image in the scroll directly rebutted with a slight movement of his lips. "Then you should take a look at what's on your side." The leader of the ghost spirit sect's expression darkened as he glanced towards the direction of the spatial rift. He said coldly. The scholar in the portrait was momentarily stunned, but after a brief pause, the portrait vanished, and the surface of the scroll shimmered with light, turning a misty blue. A layer of luminous energy appeared on the flag. Then it flashed smoothly. A ball of green light shot out from the mist, transforming into a blurry shadow that emerged. It is indeed the scholar-like figure in the painting. At this moment, the scholar's body seems formless, completely composed of murky gray and white light and shadow, emitting a faint spiritual glow, as if a single breath could extinguish it. "How should I address you? Are you the Kinkin master from back then? How could you possibly maintain your primordial spirit without perishing, and live until today?" Wang Tianyu felt his voice was dry. He himself sensed a hint of shock in his words. "I have limited time outside the scroll. If you have any questions, just ask your sect master later. Let me take a look at the crack first." The scholar paid little attention to Wang Tianyu's shock. Instead, he stared at the direction of the spatial crack. His brows slightly furrowed. As he opened his mouth, a burst of gray light shot out. With a bang, the light group was silently swallowed by the spatial crack there. Yu Shang's expression suddenly became somewhat strange. Back then, there was indeed no such invisible crack here. It seems to be one of the rare newly formed cracks. You fellows need not worrying too much about it. It's just a coincidence. I will head back first. Are you Sheng first wrapped his scarf? Then pondered for a moment. Then think about it. Finally, it became calm. Finally, there was a sudden sound. His figure instantly faded. He transformed back into a swirl of green light and flew into the painting. Reflecting quietly, he didn't seem to want to linger outside. The light and shadow drawn by the scholar appeared for a moment, then disappeared from everyone's sight again. Wang Tiangu and the others were taken aback. Everyone had a strange expression on their faces. Wei Wai was silent for a moment. He opened his mouth to ask the sect master Wang, "Is this person really the former Kanken master?" However, this person is left with only fear. Even if he was indeed the invincible one back then, now he is no longer to be feared. Was it he who informed about Lin Miaoyan's matter? In a sense, this person can be considered the Kanken master, but he is also no longer the Kanken master. However, Lin Miaoyan's knowledge was indeed learned from the other party's mouth. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect heard that the spatial rift had just appeared. His expression relaxed a bit. Now, he answered Wei Wai's question with a normal expression. "What does this mean? There's no need for you to play tricks, my friend." Wei Wai's face slightly changed. He showed an unwavering expression. Brother Wei has misunderstood. The terrifying scroll we just saw is actually just a remnant of a phrase from the late Master Kanken. It's merely the residual soul of his body. This phrase refers to when I encountered the injured and destroyed form while exploring the Devil's Abyss in the past. It was then that Master Kanken placed it into this soul tomb made from the remnants of the oxygen soul, for quiet recuperation and recovery. However, now, the real Master Kanken has been dead for countless years. The residual soul here, aside from some memories, has gained autonomy. Nowadays, saying it is another person wouldn't be inappropriate? The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect said calmly. As Wei Wai listened, looking somewhat surprised, Wang Tiangu then spared no words, feeling a bitter smile inside. He didn't know if it was because he hadn't discovered the secret of the scroll, or if he was feeling a bit frustrated for guessing wrong again. So it turns out this is the case. It seems you and this residual soul have reached some agreement, which is why he informed you about Lin Miaoyan's matter. But none of this matters. It has nothing to do with me, as long as it allows me to enter the 0-second origin. What agreement did you have with him? I won't inquire about it. Wei has reached an age now. He only wants to enter the dust transformation stage and ascend. He nodded slightly at Wu Ye. He said coldly, Brother Wei is indeed a sensible person. This is the best way. All right. Since this space crack appeared by chance, let's set off. The leader of the Ghost Spirit sect smiled slightly. Then a disciple stepped forward again. After clearing the way, the Ghost Spirit sect disciple looked a bit pale, but silently bypassed the front space crack and moved forward. The crow moved cautiously and slowly. The others from the Ghost Spirit sect followed suit. The group continued towards the clearly visible, huge altar. What happened to you? Your flying squirrel has gone out of control. Standing in a place covered with thick ice layers in a glacial area, Han Li gazed at the blood-red glow that reappeared in the sky. His face dark as he spoke to the nearby Zi Ling.